Good evening. Welcome to all of our guests this evening, to everyone in attendance, to the board meeting of March 9th. We'll start by calling the meeting to order and begin with our land acknowledgement. The Hamilton Wentworth District School Board acknowledges our presence on an ancestral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacy land as determined by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. The intent of this agreement is for all nations sharing this territory to do so responsibly, respectfully, and sustainably in perpetuity. We respect the long-standing relationships with the local Indigenous communities, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Six Nations of the Grand River. And with that, I'd ask you to rise for the singing of O Canada. So I'll begin by looking for approval of the agenda. Motion by Trustee Tutt, seconded by Trustee Buck. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the agenda? That is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? And I did not receive any written notices. Seeing none, we'll move along. Confirmation of the minutes from February 24th. I'll give trustees just a few moments to look over. Is there any questions, concerns, comments with regards to the meeting minutes of February 24th? Seeing none, we'll continue to move along. We have correspondence. Item 6, we received letters from the Upper Grand District School Board, as well as Avon Maitland District School Board. Both are letters to the minister. Looking for a motion. Trustee Tutt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move a motion that the board forward letters that we sent last year to the Minister of Education, that they be forwarded now to the current Minister of Education, with the one addition that I guess flows from finance and facilities, that the need for timely budget information and updates be provided. Just to convey that in a letter. That's my motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Tutt looking for a seconder. Trustee Pagan-Miller. Trustee Tutt, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The intent of the motion is simple. It's essentially to ensure that the new Minister of Education is informed of our board's previously stated positions. Thank you.
Trustee Pagan-Miller, seconder, would you like to say anything? Further comments? Vice Chair Danko.
Thank you, and through the chair, I think this would be a valuable step to take. We have been very clear in the past, particularly through the budget process last year, in terms of our positions on what makes a quality education system and where we would like to see funding spent. With the change in the minister's position, I think it's important that we ensure that our voice is brought forward to the current minister. And I appreciate Trustee Tutt's acknowledgement of some discussion that we've had at Finance and Facilities. Certainly, we have been assured by the government that we would expect to receive our budget information this year in a more reasonable timeframe than we saw last year. But we do know the challenges that we went through last year, and I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to also reiterate the importance of timely information and announcements from the government regarding our budget process, so that we can effectively go through our staffing timelines, so that we can effectively plan for next year. So I welcome the opportunity to add that piece and to just reiterate our position that was already sent out last year.
Further comments, questions from trustees? I'll just kind of close by adding in my comments, which is that this board was previously one of the first boards in the province to send letters to the former Education Minister, Lisa Thompson. At that time, we had highlighted some exciting business happening out in the hall. So we had highlighted our board's concerns around an increase to, at the time, suggested to 28 class size average. We highlighted concerns around increases to class sizes overall. We highlighted concerns around kindergarten class size, as well as mandatory e-learning, changes to special education, changes to autism funding, as well as local priority funding, which this board specifically uses, so that I'm happy to also support this in terms of just ensuring that with a changeover that the new minister is aware of all that we previously communicated. All right, seeing no further discussion, all in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Moving along to item 7, reports from trustee specials committees program. Turning to trustee Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So at our very last program committee meeting in February, we had Superintendent Sharon Stefanian come and share some monitoring items for the Positive Culture and Wellbeing Report. So as you can see in your package here, we had several different things that were brought up. So we looked at the previous school year, the 2018-19 school year, and the current school year. So from that you can see in the package, I'll just highlight some because it is quite lengthy. We had target number 1, the number of students who feel safe, supported, and accepted will increase by June 2020. And then target number 2, the number of staff feeling safe, supported, and accepted will increase by June 2020. Given the significant challenges our board has had to cope with this current school year, staff has told us that these are not targets that they anticipate meeting by their, sorry, let me start over. So these are not targets that we anticipate meeting by June of 2020. For target number 1, in regards to students who feel safe, supported, and accepted, you'll see the implementation of an emotion coach, of emotion coaching to enhance student-staff relationships. Progress has been delayed due to provincial job sanctions. Our identified schools to implement anti-racism, anti-oppression, culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, and Indigenous cultural safety and approaches. And you'll note there that progress is delayed due to provincial job sanctions. Then for target number 2, that we would develop and implement an employment equity action plan from the staff census and employment process review. Recommendations, progress is again delayed due to provincial job sanctions. So that has maybe been the overarching theme of this current school year. Things that we had anticipated being able to complete or make a great deal of headway in have been hindered by job sanctions. So then we had a update on our 21st century learning strategy. Staff presented an update to the committee, which included an inventory of digital devices being utilized at our schools, the sources of funding being used by schools to obtain devices, and the number of secondary students who opted out of the one-to-one device program. And with that, I will submit the report.
Thank you, Trustee Buck. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Danko, with that, questions, comments to the report? Student Trustee Prozic.
I just have a couple questions about items throughout the report. First off, in item A, it was mentioned in target number 2, strategic wellness plan. Can someone define what exactly that is?
To the director.
So thank you. Through the chair, I'll begin, then Superintendent Jimmy Nunn can add to this. As trustees know, we went through an audit through a third-party company, Workplace Medical, and they provided us 10 different recommendations to support our wellness and attendance management plan. One of the recommendations in there is a wellness plan, which will be coming to trustees, and it's not a wellness plan necessarily for students, but a staff wellness plan. So there's a review being undertaken right now as we speak of our current wellness plan in human resources and how that's going to evolve and then be implemented in September. So many times we refer to staff wellness as the employee assistance program, but we're actually looking at data and usage of what staff are engaging in, what is the greatest need, and then how can we use the current resources that we're currently using for employee assistance program, EAP they refer to, and how can we enhance that or further meet the needs of what staff would like. So that's one of the 10 recommendations, and we're committed to implementing all those 10 for September of 2020. I'll ask Superintendent Nunn if I've missed anything, but he's saying that sort of captures it, but more will be coming to the HR committee with further updates on that one.
Further questions?
And then as well as in item A, target number 1 mentioned emotion coaching. So it had 2 points here which kind of threw me off. It has provide professional learning on emotion coaching to school staff, as well as implement emotion coaching to enhance student-staff relationships. Can someone just explain kind of what the difference between those 2 points is?
Through to the director.
Yes, so I'll start, and Superintendent Stefanian will correct me if I'm off course here. So the first part, we've received feedback from staff. So emotion coaching is sort of a strategy that we believe that all staff can implement. We know our teachers care deeply about our students and our EAs and our ECEs. Emotion coaching, you don't need to be a clinician to implement this strategy. But the feedback they gave us is instead of come into a ballroom, provide PD, how can we embed them in staff meetings and provide a 10, 15-minute training on emotion coaching and then give them a chance to implement that practice and then come back the following staff meeting, debrief, and then give them another chunk of professional learning and then implement it. And that was the plan. We were able to execute one of those in the fall, one staff meeting, but since provincial job sanctions occurred, we've been unable to execute the rest of the plan. So I think I've captured it. So through the chair, I'm getting a nod that that's the correct explanation. Thank you, Superintendent Stefanian.
Any further questions, Student Trustee Prozic?
And then I have another question in item B, the 21st Century Learning Update. So we implemented the opting out program during a program committee last year. I was just wondering what the number of secondary students who opted out, what exactly that number was, and as well how that opting out program was advertised to secondary students.
Through the director.
So thank you. I will either look at Associate Director Peter Silvern to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, and then I will also ask if Superintendent Torrance would like to add any other details. But in the report to the committee, we did outline the number of iPads that were returned. So I'm just calling that up. Of the approximately 1,300 HWDSB secondary students, approximately 9% or approximately 9% of that either declined a board provision one-to-one device or returned it during the school year. And of that number, more than 50% of those students were in their grade 12 year, either year 4 or 5th year. So I'll pass it over to Superintendent Torrance if he has any other information in regards to how this was advertised.
And through the chair, notification of the ability to return your iPad happened different in each location, but it was made available to students. We're currently in the process of creating a more robust notification strategy for this semester.
Follow up?
Yeah, just adding on to that, I just wanted to ensure that, more students were notified of it. I knew quite a few students who actually had no clue that they could return their iPads. So hopefully we can kind of get that out there to people who don't need the iPad and kind of save that extra budget going towards the iPads for other things provisioned in the schools if students already own their own personal devices. So thanks.
Thank you, Student Trustee Prozic. Further questions? Seeing Trustee Deeth?
Thank you, and through the chair. In regards to our HWDSB Helps app, I'm just wondering how many students, do we know roughly how many students have used this app?
Through to the director.
Oh, thank you through the chair. I'm just looking at Superintendent Stefan. I don't know if we have that data with us right now, but we can get it for trustees. And just a reminder to trustees that we do have the data and able to pull it. I'll let Superintendent Stefan go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. What we can provide for trustees are the number of reports that have been filed through the app. It won't necessarily speak, because it's an anonymous reporting system, we won't necessarily know the number of students or the number of families who have utilized the app service, but we can certainly share with trustees the number of reports that have come in.
Trustee Deeth?
And thank you for that. And one other question, in regards to the positions of Safe Schools Principal and Bullying Intervention Support Social Worker, have we hired for those positions yet, or is that for next year?
Director?
I'll ask Superintendent Stefan to answer that question.
Thank you. And through the chair, yes, we have hired for both of those positions, and the funding continues to the end of this school year.
Director, you had a further comment?
Thank you. I just want to add in terms of the funding, that funding is in partnership with School Mental Health Ontario. Dr. Kathy Short, who's housed here in HWDSB, but who supports the entire province, asked the ministry to use some money for a pilot. Our hope will then be at the end of this year to ask for that extension, because we still need some more time to learn, and then hopefully execute some of the recommendations that are coming forward. So we'll keep trustees up to date on that, and our hope is that it will continue.
Are there any further questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor of receiving the report? That is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Moving along to Special Education Advisory Committee. Trustee Buck, you're going to be speaking quite a bit tonight. Trustee Buck?
Yes. So SEAC met at the end of January, and it was my very first time attending. It was a great night to get to understand the committee a bit better. We had school-based rehab services provide information. The service is funded by Ministries of Health and Community and Social Services. They include occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech and language pathology, and these therapies are necessary for children to attend and be successful in school. So the goal is to have seamless services for children who use these supportive personnel along with the professional support staff. So therapy assessment clinics help to reduce wait lists with seamless referrals from Ron Joyce Center to SBRS. We also had nominations for chair and vice chair that evening. So Judy, I'm not going to say her name right, Judy Colantino will continue as chair, and Mark Cordapat will continue as vice chair. There were no other nominations for either of those positions. We were given members' updates and a superintendent update, and with that, I would move the report.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder? Thank you, Trustee Tutt. Questions or comments to the report? Trustee Bingham.
Okay. On the back is announcements for Linwood Charlton Center, planning sessions for upcoming PA Day, March 6th, which we passed. The next one, HWDSB received funding for 100 training spaces from Ministry of Education through Sonderly, a training division of Geneva's Center for Autism. Basically, who would be eligible for those training spaces? What would they be looking at within those training spaces in particular?
To the director.
Thank you. Superintendent Peggy Blair to provide an answer to that question.
Thank you, through the chair. Great question. The training spaces are an online platform, formerly known as the Autism Intervenor course, and the spaces have to be spoken for and signed up by staff in schools. And right now, we have dedicated those 100 spaces to educational assistants in our board. So we will know by the end of March if all of the training spaces have been filled. Thank you.
Okay. That's perfect.
Further questions?
No, that's good. Thank you.
All right, so we're voting on the January 29th report. So all in favor of receiving the report, that is unanimous. And then we'll turn back again to Trustee Buck to bring forward the February 26th report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry you guys have to listen to me so much tonight, but you missed possibly the fastest meeting of all time this evening. Sorry. Yes, so on the 26th of last month, we were able to just get quorum to do the nomination from Voice for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children. The committee recommended that Jessica Malcu, who represents Voice, be appointed as an alternate to the committee, and that motion passed. And yeah, that was it, summed up in less than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Trustee Buck. Questions or comments to the report? Sorry, I do need a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Tutt. Seeing no questions or comments, all in favor of receiving, that is, it's approving, a motion to approve. That is unanimous. Thank you. So moving along to Westmount naming auditorium, and we'll turn to the director and to bring forward the report, and I'm sure we'll hear from our area trustee Buck as well on this item. Through to the director.
Thank you. Before I pass it over to Superintendent Denemy, I want to thank Superintendent Denemy as well as Research and Athletics and Communications for providing support in this process. We're excited to bring a recommended action there, and I'm going to pass it over to Superintendent Denemy, who will outline the process followed by the policy and the name that is being recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair. It's recommended that the following submission by the School Naming Advisory Committee be considered for Westmount Auditorium at Westmount Secondary School. And the recommended name, Cynthia Reese Auditorium. HWDSB solicited suggestions for names for the Westmount Auditorium from stakeholder groups through the completion of an online survey and/or by mailing or email written correspondence to HWDSB. The survey was posted from December 2nd to January 31st and resulted in over 945 responses and over 47 suggested names. The School Naming Advisory Committee is putting forth their preferred name for the Westmount Auditorium. The submissions were reviewed according to the guiding principles outlined in the board policy and procedure. The School Naming Advisory Committee met on February 19th to discuss and consider the public consultation report and all names suggested. The committee utilized 3 rounds of voting to come to consensus for the recommendation for consideration by the trustees. The committee feels that Cynthia Reese Auditorium meets the guiding principles outlined within the naming schools policy. Cindy Reese was a teacher for over 20 years at Westmount who passed away from cancer in September 2018. The school community was hoping to have the auditorium named after an individual that reflects the values, dedication, and appreciation for the love of students and theater as Cindy instilled. That concludes my report.
Thank you. So at this point, I am looking for a motion, or I guess, yeah, we'll have a motion and I'm going to speak to it. So I'm looking for a motion. Is there a motion? Trustee Buck?
So I would like to put forward a motion to name the Westmount Secondary School Auditorium the Cynthia Reese Auditorium.
Thank you. And a seconder, Trustee Danko. And with that, speakers to the motion, Trustee Buck?
So I spoke to this a little bit back in November when I brought forward the motion to begin the naming and part process. But I just want to bring your attention to the folks in the gallery this evening. So this is Cindy Reese's group of, well, her very dearly beloved group. I cannot begin to tell you the number of people who have reached out in my short tenure as trustee to sing Cindy's praises. She left an incredible mark on the Westmount community, and it was clearly their will, pretty much right away, that she be honored in some way such as this. So it's really the folks over there who drove this project, and I just get to be the conduit. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit of who Cindy was with me and with this board, that we could understand just how impactful Cindy was in so many students' lives. I've had kids who have graduated years ago come up to me and say thank you to me for what small thing I've done, because this is a teacher who they still have a picture of her on their nightstand, because she made a lasting impression. She saw and she loved the students at Westmount that came through her doors, and she made a difference in the way that I think every teacher hopes to make a difference. So thank you for helping us to do her this honor. And thank you to Superintendent Dinnery for putting the work in, for Kathleen as well, in making this happen. Yes, so I'll just leave it at that, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Bach. Trustee Danko, as a seconder, do you have some comments?
Thank you, and through the chair, I'll just add that a total of 945 responses is a significant number of responses. We don't usually see this this level of participation in naming, even for whole schools. And so I think that's a testament to the passion behind this recommendation, and very happy to see that it was an overwhelming support. And of course, I don't want to diminish that there were other valued names that were put forward, and we appreciate when people do that, but I hope trustees will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Further comments? Trustee Tutt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add some quick remarks. I, in a very small way, had the pleasure of participating in the naming process. I was invited out to actually be there for the meeting, and I was quite moved to hear the stories and learn about this individual. It was quite remarkable to see the impact that this teacher had, just not on the students that she taught, but then, you know, following through and continuing on with them as these students, you know, continued on in their life, and making sure that she followed up with them and helped them get jobs in the arts and in that sector. So, you know, when I heard these stories, it just felt right that was the name, right? And you almost kind of take it back, and you say to yourself that, you know what, it's individuals that like these that deserve their name on our facilities, right? It's something that we can be proud of, and just want to say thank you to everyone for allowing me to be a guest there and to participate and see and learn. I want to thank Superintendent Denemy as well, who had a very unique and democratic election or process to get the name out, which was amazing. And thank you to everyone that participated and let me being part of it. Thank you.
Any further comments? I'll just add my own comments. I was struck by the fact that the largest group of respondents was students themselves. So over 30% of students participated in this process. And of everyone who participated, there was just almost 84% that were in support of the school being named after Cynthia Reese. And I think that that truly does speak to the message that we're hearing from the local trustee and from Trustee Tutt, that students were very much moved by your family member and by this, you know, truly loved teacher. So with that, I'm happy to support the motion as well. Seeing no further comments, all in favor of the motion to name the auditorium at Westmount Secondary Cynthia Reese Auditorium? That is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. You're welcome to stay for the remainder of our meeting. But we understand if you don't. With that, I am looking for a motion to move in camera. Nope. You're missing, my apologies. We are missing item number 10. Student trustee election results. Turning to Director Figueredo.
Thank you. Through the chair, before I pass over to Superintendent Denemy as well, the recommended action from trustees this evening is to approve 3 student trustees. I just always want to set the context. Typically, we would not, in the past, we would not be here this early to present the names, but under the new regulation 7-07, boards are required to, by the end of February, to finish their election process for 1-year terms of office for student trustees. In addition, this year, trustees are seeing your motion in action, the motion from the First Nation Métis Inuit Advisory Committee. Trustees approved that we would have a 3rd trustee and a 3rd trustee who would reflect our Indigenous students. So with that note, I want to thank Superintendent Denemy, Superintendent Stefanian, Trustee Officer Heather Miller for supporting, and our 2 student trustees, Ahona and Cam, for promoting this process. So thank you very much to Superintendent Denemy.
Thank you, and through to the chair. Staff recommend that the following students be confirmed to stand as student trustees within Hamilton Wentworth District School Board for the term of office from August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021. Ethan Hessler from Ancaster High, Skylar Seege from Shea, Fatima Zakur from Saltfleet. The student trustee position representing the Indigenous student was selected based on a consent from our Cultivating Community Reclaiming Our Spaces in Education, or CC Rose group, which was led which was student-led initiative for the Indigenous students by Indigenous students, which began last year. Staff supported this committee through the creation of the process that was undertaken to select by committee consent, the first student trustee representing Indigenous students at HWDSB. Similar to last year, the election process for additional 2 student trustee representatives went digital and provided the opportunity for every grade 7 to 12 HWDSB student to participate in voting for their top 2 candidates to represent their voice at the boardroom table. A total of 8 applications were received, and all candidates moved forward to the election assembly as they all met eligibility criteria. Applications were received from Ancaster, Bernie Custis, Glendale, Saltfleet, Sherwood, Westdale, and Westmount. Some schools had multiple applications. The following board approval tonight, Ethan Hessler, Skylar Sigi, and Fatima Zakar will be introduced and sworn in at a board meeting in May 2020. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Looking for a trustee to move the recommended action. Trustee Galendo, seconded by Trustee Bingham. Discussion, questions? Student Trustee Prozic, thank you.
As we move into the second year of having the online process for all students available to vote, I'd just like to express once again gratitude for all the staff involved in that and all the staff that made that move forward. I think it's really important that all students from grade 7 to 12 do get a chance to vote for their only representatives at the board table. And it's actually raised a lot of awareness about the role of student trustee as well, which has been very beneficial. So I hope as we move forward, we get to iron out some of the kinks, figure out how we can have the most efficient process. But I really am grateful, as well as I'm grateful for the fact that we have an Indigenous student representative. This is something that's been implemented at boards across Ontario already, and I'm glad we could kind of catch up with that and we could kind of, implement that and move forward. So thank you to all the staff involved in this, and I can't wait to meet all 3 student trustees.
Further comments? I'll go over to Trustee Galindo.
I have no comments at this time.
My apologies. Well, you moved the motion. It's just like, okay. The seconder, Trustee Bingham, did you have any comments?
I just want to thank everyone for the hard work and the patience that you've had to be able to help bring an Indigenous student to the table. It has been a long journey for some. It's been an incredible learning process for many. And I do believe that once they are here and everything is settled and eased for what is going to happen with having 3 students here, we're all going to really enjoy the benefits of having all 3 points of view and being able to have those voices here at the table together. So thank you very, very much to all the staff who really have put so much into it.
Trustee Deeth?
Just comment first is just echoing appreciation of all the work that's gone into this. And it's great to see that we're getting applications from numerous schools now. So that's great. A total of 8 applications. So how many of those, just out of curiosity, were for the Indigenous trustee position?
So through to the director.
So I'll look at Superintendent Denemy to explain the process for our student Indigenous trustee.
Thank you, and through the chair. So those 8 applications were for the non-Indigenous student trustees. The Indigenous, this process was done through consensus, using CC rows and student voice. Students came together a total of 4 times from CC rows and determined what process they would like to use, either an Indigenous process or a colonial process, such as an electoral system that we use for the other 2 trustees. So a total of 30 students are actually within the CC Rose student-led group that would have been considered, and they narrowed that down to 2 students that met the eligibility and then came to consensus under an Indigenous lens in order to make that decision.
Wonderful, thank you. And just my final question is, how many students voted?
Superintendent Denemy?
Thank you, and through the chair, we had 500 students vote.
Further questions or comments? Trustee Danko.
Thank you, and through the chair, I'll again echo the thanks for all the hard work that went into this, and we're excited to welcome 3 new student trustees for the next year. I was just hoping to better understand the process that we used for the electronic voting for the non-Indigenous student positions. And just to clarify, I believe I'm reading that if a student was at a school, that school could submit a ballot with the top 2 choices as voted on in that school. So that would include all of the grade schools with students who voted and secondary schools. And maybe if you could just run me through that process. Thank you.
Superintendent Denham.
Thank you, and through the chair. So votes are tallied at each of the schools. That tally is then created for that school then to have their top 1 and 2 choices to go forward into the vote count. This has been decided on to ensure that we don't end up with a large school competing against one of our smaller schools, that each school has the total of 2 votes total.
Trustee Danko?
Thanks. So just to follow up, that would mean that all elementary schools who had students who voted would have the same number of votes as all secondary schools?
Correct. Oops. Sorry.
Go.
Correct.
Sorry to rephrase that for clarity. When you consider how many elementary schools we have, then we would have more votes from elementary schools than from high schools, correct?
Correct. Traditionally, we are currently promoting with our elementary schools to become involved. We actually received the majority of our votes through secondary.
Thank you. And the follow-up question would be, what would the split have been for a number of elementary versus high school students who voted in this particular election?
Superintendent Denham?
Thank you. All secondary schools participated, and we had 9 elementary schools participate.
Follow-up?
I'll throw this question out there as we, reflect on the process that was used, and I think this is something to celebrate. I'd be curious to know what the student trustees thought about that process, given I'm just imagining like an entire high school could have 2 candidates voted for by the school based on however many ballots were submitted. And an elementary school with maybe a grade 7 and a grade 8 class would also get 2 ballots. So I'm just curious if there's an opportunity to reflect and see if that system works, or if maybe there's an opportunity to look at the numbers and maybe find a balance.
Superintendent Denham, when would this next be, I guess, the voting electoral system be reviewed? Or when does it get reviewed annually?
Normally, we review it in the fall. However, we could do a review with our current student trustees.
Okay. So that can be taken away. Okay. Further questions? Some of mine were asked. First of all, I want to just give a heartfelt welcome to our 3 new student trustees who are no doubt are watching us from the online, as all teenagers do. But some of the things I appreciated was seeing 3 new school or program names listed on here that I, in my many years as trustee, over, I guess, 10 now, I've certainly, and I don't think we've ever had a student trustee from Ancaster High in the past decade, and I think we might have had one from Southleigh. So I'm very excited to see some different schools coming forward, and certainly we've never had a student from the SHE program. So I'm extremely happy about that. So with that, I did note that there was only 8 applications across the system, and some years in the past, we have had more. So perhaps when we go back and look at the system, and that's a way for even our trustees around the table to further engage our schools and to ensure that students are putting their names forward, that they're aware of the opportunity. I know it's not for lack of promotion. I know that our student trustees and our student senate worked very hard with the superintendent to promote this process. But we have so many fantastic students across the system, and I know that this is a great opportunity that so many more would be qualified for. So with that, those are kind of my comments, and we'll just have to keep thinking about how to better promote this. Really, it's an extraordinary opportunity to take part in the governance and have to champion student voice at this table. So with that, all in favor of the recommended action, that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Now I truly am looking for a motion to move in camera. Thank you, Trustee Tutt, seconded by Trustee Miller. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you.
instead of the committee report from earlier this evening, because then I repeat that. Can you present the next item?
All right. Welcome back. Now turn to the vice chair to present the next item.
Thank you, and through the chair, it is my pleasure to present the report of the private session of the Committee of the Whole held earlier this evening, that the tentative collective agreement between the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Local 4153, Custodial Maintenance and Cooks, and Hamilton Wentworth District School Board for the term of September 1st, 2019 to August 31st, 2022 be approved and amended as per the School Board's Collective Bargaining Act.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Bingham, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous for those in the room. Please note that Trustee Tutt is out of the room, as is Trustee Deeth. And we also had regrets from Trustee Archer earlier as well. All right, moving along to oral reports. There's no report from the City School Board Liaison Committee as we have not met. Turning over to the Hamilton Wentworth Home and School Association, Trustee Galindo.
I'll take that, Madam Chair. The committee, or the Home and School Association met at the end of February. They had some discussion around working with our rentals departments for their events and they had discussions to clarify which home and school activities can continue during labor sanctions. A number of people had attended the first bullying panel sessions, and so they had some discussion and feedback about that session. They also have their AGM coming up in the first weekend of April in Brantford.
Thank you. Any questions or comments to the report? Seeing none, moving along to Foundation for Student Success. Trustee Pagan-Miller.
All right, so we had a meeting, and the meeting showed the school support grants schools have been notified of the funding decisions for the winter 2020 school support grants. 18 schools have received funding totaling $15,800, and student support grants, a total of 355 grants totaling $66,630 have been approved by the foundation between October the 1st, 2019 and February 28, 2020. Requests are most significantly related to funding clothing, outerwear, and footwear for students. And now the big event. The Prom Project Hamilton 2020 is coming up, and that will be Saturday, April the 4th, 2020, and Saturday, May the 2nd, 2020, at Sir Winston Churchill Secondary School from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m., and this is quite an event. It provides students the opportunity to pick out formal wear for their proms, graduations, banquets, and other special events free of charge. This event is open to all students, and the donations would include for dresses, accessories, shoes, purses, and we welcome all the donations we can get because it's really wonderful for the students to have this opportunity. And there are about 29 different drop-off locations for these donations. So if you can give anything, if you've got anything to give it. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I move the report.
Thank you. And with that too, trustees would have had an email inviting them to sign up to volunteer for the prom project. I am signed up. So if you need that forwarded to you, we can ensure that gets back out. Further questions, Trustee Deeth?
Just wondering where we find a list of the drop-off locations.
It's on the website. It's on the foundation website. I have it right here if you want it, but I actually ran it off tonight. When I was home, I ran it off. So you can get a copy of it, actually. Donation locations. Okay. I've got it if you want a copy.
And Trustee Liaison Officer Miller will also send that out. Any further questions? Thank you. So next is OPSPA report. I'll keep it brief. Coronavirus, the Ministry of Health announced Ontario implementing enhanced measures to safeguard public from coronavirus. They're meeting with stakeholders to prepare an enhanced response structure across the province and also with regards to regional plans regarding outbreak. School boards will continue to work with their local public health units. Collective bargaining continues. At the most recent release, there was a release from the ministry on Ontario announces a fair plan to keep students in class, which entailed details regarding the collective bargaining. It was also supplemented by a memo B4 budget planning information 2020-2021. There was also provincial budget will be released Wednesday, March 25th. There was also a regulation regarding youth vaping. It was announced at the end of February by the Ministry of Health. There was limits placed on where flavored and high nicotine vape products can be sold. It will come into force May 1st. There is also a ban on the sale of high nicotine e-cigarettes everywhere except for in specialty vape shops. That will come into effect July 1st. The Ontario Liberal Party had their leadership race, and Stephen Del Duca was announced as the party's new leader. On March 3rd, Ontario 2020, there was the Ontario unveils plan to build mental health and addictions system. That was also announced by the Minister of Health. That concludes my OPSPA report. If there's any questions. Seeing none, motion to adjourn. Thank you. Oh, Trustee, you were slow to that. It's Trustee Danko, seconded by Trustee Galindo. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't I just leave it blank and then look it over, the whole thing, and then you can define it here. Perfect. Okay. Congrats. Thanks so much.